He brought out a rubber stamp and a red ink pad. M opened the pad, tamped the rubber stamp on it, and then carefully pressed it down on the gray cover. He turned the docket round and pushed it gently across the desk to Bond. The red sans serif letters, still damp, said, "For your eyes only." Silenced last week was one of the busiest and most successful typewriters of recent years when Ian Fleming, creator of James Bond, died in England at the age of 56 following a heart attack. Ian Fleming's name first appeared on the bookstands in 1953 with the first of Bond's adventures, Casino Royale, which he had begun to write at the age of 44. After that, startling things happened. More than 32 million copies of his 14 books were sold, earning him a fortune of close to $3 million. 12 million copies in the United Kingdom. 15 million in the United States, where the late President Kennedy was an ardent James Bond fan. The Adventures of Bond appeared in 20 languages, including Finnish, Japanese, and Thai. 2 have already been turned into immensely popular movies, and a third film is in production. During each annual 2-month period at GoldenEye, Ian Fleming wrote a new book, 2,000 words in 3 hours every morning. Each one seemed to be assured of success.
How do you feel about the kind of novel that has great sexual detail and an entirely promiscuous cast?
Well, I must say, of course, I'm a certain age, so that the whole thing's rather stale news to me, but I think it's unnecessary, really. I think you can convey sex without using raw words very much better than by using them.
You yourself referred to the fact that you don't use the Anglo-Saxon 4-letter words. I take it you disapprove of that in literature?
I suppose it's some streak of my Scottish Puritan forebears, but I don't like seeing them on the page somehow. I use quite a lot of them when I'm playing golf, for instance.
Certain people are always criticizing novels with sex and violence in them on the basis that they're going to corrupt our youth. How do you feel about that?
And I meant for warm-blooded, heterosexual adults, you know, in beds and railway trains and aeroplanes. They're not meant for schoolboys.
Teenagers presumably are reading them, however.
Oh, yes, they are, and I think they're enjoying them very much. My son hasn't yet got to read them. He's about 11 and a half. He thinks they're very dull.
In one of the books, you have Bond referring to his own basically dirty life.
Well, of course, spying is a dirty trade, and we all know it. Khrushchev has said so, and so has Alan Dulles.
Well, why do you think a hero who engages in a dirty trade and leads a basically dirty life has become so popular with the reading public?
Well, it's very difficult to say. I think because perhaps the books have pace and plenty of action, and espionage is not regarded by the majority of the public as a dirty trade. They regard it rather as sort of very romantic affair, you know, since the first days when the spy from the other side lifted up the tent flap and listened to the plans of the Arab chieftains and tried to get away with it. Spying has always been regarded as a very romantic one-man job, so to speak, as one man against the whole police force or an army.
Do you feel there's a need for heroes, extravagant heroes like James Bond?
I've got many heroes in my life. I mean, people like Winston Churchill and heaven knows how many other people I've met during the war. And I think that although they may have feet of clay, we probably all have, and all human beings have, and there's no point in dwelling entirely on the feet. There are many other parts of the animal that could be examined. And I think that people like to read about heroes.
Mr. Fleming, in your books there's a great amount of detail. Is this detail based on personal experience? Do you make it up? Where does it come from?
Well, I can say it's 90% from personal experience, really. I wouldn't say the espionage detail is, because although I worked in naval intelligence during the war and got mixed up in a lot of shenanigans, of course, if I started sticking too close to the espionage, true espionage work of today, I should be in trouble with the Official Secrets Act in England, even supposing I had access to information. So a lot of the espionage detail is either invented or taken from very often cases which have been brought between, let's say, the West Germans and the Russians, the KGB, or incidents that have occurred all over the world in the espionage field, and which, of course, the whole battle goes on the whole time, so there's plenty of material available in that direction. As for the backgrounds, I try and I can't really write about anywhere that I haven't seen myself. And being basically a reporter by trade, I have got a good, strong visual sense for background and interesting detail and so on, which I try to bring into my books just in order to make them seem more valid and truthful. And of course, if you're off on some tremendous plot with heaven knows what, James Bond in a hassle with some terrible villain, if he can use a Ronson lighter, let's say, or drive a Bentley motor car, or stay in the Ritz Hotel, this all brings the reader back to earth.
In the books, you describe little foibles of Bond, things he likes or dislikes, usually things he dislikes. Things like tea and Windsor knots. Are these your dislikes?
Yes, they are, yeah.
Are you given to many and strong dislikes?
I think so. They're sort of foibles, you know, but tea I regard as practically the downfall of the British Empire, and tie with a Windsor knot I find much too tidy. I think, you know, it shows that the man's rather vain, I think, if he uses a Windsor knot to his tie. So I put these in. They're sort of, they build up perhaps the character of James Bond to a certain extent, and I'm rather amused, of course, to put forward my own little quirks in prose.
Does this again then take us around to a reason for James Bond being so popular in that he always has a goal?
His task is a straightforward one, and he goes for it in a fairly straightforward fashion. And I think people like the action.
Is it possible that one of these days we'll read a James Bond novel in which the hero is killed at the end?
I couldn't possibly afford it.